300 guaranteed million, at least 250 guaranteed million. You were supposed to be the face of the franchise, and you fire back personally at this guy?
Lamar Jackson, you've been around him. He's got one of the biggest hearts of anybody I know. I think that's not a place he wants to be, and that's certainly not things that he wants to say.
Ladies and gentlemen, get ready. It's going to be a very crazy week this week. I'm currently on 4 hours of sleep, and that's because I've been up all night researching because there's so many topics to cover this week, and I'm going to do my best to cover all of them. I mean, we have Mike White and Zach Wilson. We have Odell Beckham Jr. getting into some interesting trouble. We have Russell Wilson hitting a brand new low. Deshaun Watson's coming back. And then right when I thought that things can't get any more bizarre, this news falls right into my lap. So before we get to the content, I've been having a lot of fun doing prize picks lately, guys. So I think I'm gonna start going live on either TikTok and Instagram and making picks with you guys. We actually hit on my Thanksgiving pick from my previous video. Huge lock here, bro. I feel so good about this. Darius Slayton is gonna be able to play. And right now, Prize Picks is doing a 100% deposit match up to $100 when you use my promo code Mikerophone, or just in the link in the description down below. I have a lot of fun playing this. I hope it's something that we could do together more consistently. And now look at all that out of the way. Work! Today's video is sponsored by our good friends at SeatGeek. SeatGeek is by far the easiest way to purchase tickets to events, games, or concerts right on your mobile device. I have the app on my phone, and it's by far the best and easiest way to purchase tickets to any event I want to go to. Whether it's concerts, baseball, basketball, football, festivals, or more, SeatGeek puts all the tickets all over the web in one place for you to easily make a decision as to what ticket you'd like. And they go the extra mile to ensure that their customers are getting the best deal by essentially ranking each ticket versus how valuable they are. So if you see a green dot as you're looking at your seats, chances are you just scored a good deal. And right now they're hooking up my subscribers. When you use promo code Mikerophone, you'll get $20 off of tickets at SeatGeek. That's promo code Mikerophone for $20 off of your tickets on SeatGeek. And thank you, SeatGeek, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? There's been so many narratives about Lamar Jackson throughout his entire career. I mean, from the very moment he entered the NFL, he had an absolute legend in Bill Polian calling him a running back. But the most recent drama with Lamar Jackson stemmed all the way back into the offseason, where him and the Baltimore Ravens just couldn't come to an agreement on a contract extension. You see, Lamar Jackson saw a pretty crazy contract extension appear right before his eyes when the Cleveland Browns offered to pay Deshaun Watson a fully guaranteed $240 million contract, a contract that is so absurd, especially given Deshaun Watson's situation at the time, that no team dared mimic the same exact deal. I mean, following that deal, you had the Cardinals, who were working something out with Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray didn't get a fully guaranteed deal. He got a pretty nice deal, but it wasn't fully guaranteed. Then you had the Denver Broncos, who brilliantly decided to trade for Russell Wilson and then give him a contract extension after seeing a couple press conferences of himself saying, "Let's ride." Let's ride. And even he didn't get a fully guaranteed deal. And thank the Lord. Could you just imagine, like, if the Broncos are screwed now, could you just imagine how much more screwed they would have been if they would have given a fully guaranteed deal to Russell Wilson? I mean, it's not like they're in a better situation now, but I digress. We have a full video on that. Make sure you watch it. So much stuff about that situation, an absolute dumpster fire. But let's get back to this. As a result of Deshaun Watson's contract, Lamar Jackson essentially told the Ravens that he wanted the same type of deal. He also is negotiating on his own behalf, and on top of everything, he's already won an MVP, so he does have some accolades to back it up. Don't get me wrong, there are definitely flaws to Lamar Jackson's game, and there are definitely question marks about him as a quarterback. With all due respect to Lamar Jackson, you're not necessarily seeing top-tier wide receivers wanting to go to Baltimore to play with Lamar Jackson, and I don't think that's a knock on Lamar. I think that's more of a knock on the system that the Baltimore Ravens are in. Greg Roman's offense places a huge emphasis on the run. It's a consistent ground and pound attack, and then they'll hit you with a home run strike. I mean, you saw Deshaun Jackson catch one of these home run balls this past weekend. And there's been so many knocks on Lamar Jackson, especially in a year where he literally bet on himself to try to get a bigger contract than he would have gotten anyways. On top of that, if you're a quarterback that really believes in your abilities and you're in the NFL, you should try to kick the can down the road as much as you can, because the longer longer you wait to get your contract extension, the more you're going to get paid relative to everyone else in your position. I mean, you remember the Dak Prescott contract extension that Dallas Cowboys were getting a lot of heat for? He's now the 9th highest paid QB in the entire NFL, which, to be honest, as a Cowboy fan, I think that's great value for Dak Prescott. Now, the Baltimore Ravens are in a very interesting situation. To be honest, the entire AFC North is in a very peculiar situation. I mean, looking at the records of the Baltimore Ravens, the Cincinnati Bengals, and Cleveland Browns, and when you consider the fact that the Cleveland Browns are getting Deshaun Watson back for the final 7 games of the season, things are about to get really interesting in this division. And as you could tell, it's neck and neck between the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals to win the division and get a guaranteed playoff spot. I'm sure second place could potentially get a wild card spot, but as a result of this, tensions are very, very high for the Ravens, who have so far proven that they have one of the better defenses in the NFL. They went all in and traded for Roquan Smith on top of this, and as a result, this past weekend could have essentially been a trap game for the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, the Jacksonville Jaguars are definitely trending upward, don't get me wrong, and I am one of the biggest Trevor Lawrence defenders that you will ever find on YouTube. I mean, I think it's only a matter of time before you see his jersey on this wall over here. I love his ability to make throws that most quarterbacks can't make. I love watching him develop right in front of our very eyes. And unfortunately for the Baltimore Ravens, we saw the next step in Trevor Lawrence's development this past weekend when he heroically led the Jacksonville Jaguars to one of the most incredible drives that I think I've seen all year. It included a 4th down conversion, it included a touchdown, it included multiple difficult throws by Trevor Lawrence, and the best part of all, in typical Doug Peterson fashion, the Jacksonville Jaguars were incredibly aggressive once they scored the potential game-tying touchdown, but they didn't go for a tie. They didn't kick the extra point. They converted a 2-point conversion. I don't remember the last time I saw this happen successfully. I mean, typically whenever I see a team go for 2 to try to get the lead, usually they lose. And what's interesting is this past weekend, we actually saw 2 of these situations pan out for coaches that it typically doesn't pan out for. You have the LA Chargers and Brandon Staley, who we typically meme for getting these situations wrong and being too overly aggressive. And then you have Doug Peterson, who also is known for being overly aggressive. It worked out for both of these coaches. I just wanted to make sure we were all aware of that. And unfortunately, the Baltimore Ravens were very frustrated. I mean, this is a team that was expecting to beat the quote-unquote lowly Jacksonville Jaguars. And as a result, it looks like towards the end of the game, Lamar Jackson took to Twitter to see what fans were saying about him. So this is what initially caught my eye, because as a result of this exchange, I got this notification that said Lamar Jackson responds to social media posts that criticized his performance with tweet that included anti-gay phrase. So that definitely made me raise an eyebrow, and when I went ahead to look at it, I saw the exchange between Lamar Jackson and a fan. So Lamar Jackson's been getting this type of heat all season long, by the way. Fans saying that,
oh, he doesn't deserve $250 million guaranteed.
And that's what this fan had to say. When someone is asking for over $250 million guaranteed, like Lamar Jackson, games like this should not come to Justin Tucker. Let Lamar walk and spend that money on a well-rounded team. So I forgot to mention, following Trevor Lawrence's heroic 2-point conversion to give the Jacksonville Jaguars the lead, Lamar Jackson actually was able to get the Baltimore Ravens in position for a 67-yard Justin Tucker field goal, which I bet Justin Tucker was salivating over this because he had the opportunity to beat his own record that he set last year versus the Detroit Lions. And unfortunately, the 67-yard field goal didn't convert, which was 1 yard longer than his previous record. And as a result, the Ravens lost. So what this fan is referring to is games like this should not come to Justin Tucker. Let Lamar walk and spend that money on a well-rounded team, which, by the way, I don't think is the worst take at all. If we wanted to back up a little bit, it really depends on what Ravens fans think about Lamar Jackson. Typically, I would say if Lamar Jackson isn't your guy, you should trade him. I mean, they should have done this last off season. You probably would get a plethora of first-round picks for the guy. I mean, honestly, there'd be so many teams that would pay top dollar to have a quarterback like Lamar Jackson on their team. So in the event that the Ravens don't think Lamar is their guy, that's not necessarily a bad way to approach this. You know me, I'm a huge proponent of taking a quarterback, finding a good QB in the NFL draft, taking advantage of his rookie scale contract, surrounding him with as much talent as humanly possible, and trying to make a run to the Super Bowl. You're watching the Dolphins do it currently, and same with the Philadelphia Eagles. Lamar Jackson was tagged in this tweet, and oh my god, he did not like what this man had to say, and I don't really blame him. Lamar said, and I quote, "Boy, STFU, y'all be capping too much on this app. MF never smelt a football field, never did shit but eat. So as a result of this, Lamar Jackson got a lot of heat. I mean, he got so much heat that he had to delete the tweet. And to be honest, man, typically I would not think this is a big deal at all, but the media is making a pretty big deal out of this. So this is what John Harbaugh had to say on Lamar Jackson's tweet. And I think what he said was very intelligent here.
I talked to him. I heard about it last night. Talked to him this morning. We talk a lot about football, but we also talk a little bit about that stuff too. You know, what goes on in terms of the media and everything. And really, you know, it just begged guys not to get into the Twitter world right after the game, especially after a loss. It's never going to be positive. It's not going to be a nice place. You know, I think that's kind of reflected in Lamar's response, because what he said was just so out of character for him. That's not the way he speaks. It's not the way he talks. It's not the words he ever uses. I've never heard him say things like that before. He wants to win. You know, I'm sure he's frustrated, just like we all are. And that's just a place you just don't want to live. You know, I know he understands that. Lamar Jackson, you know, you've been around him. He's got one of the biggest hearts of anybody I know. You all have seen him, the way he treats people, the way he treats kids, the way he treats the media, you know, and he's also one of the biggest competitors I've ever met. So those kind of conversations he takes very seriously, you know. So you get trapped sometimes by someone that's baiting you just a little bit, and you can't live there. It's not important. That's something I love about him, but you know, I think that's not a place he wants to be, and that's certainly not things that he wants to say.
So he didn't even bother to mention whether or not what Lamar Jackson said was homophobic or not. He just said Lamar shouldn't get on Twitter when he's feeling that emotional, and he has a right to feel emotional, man. There's been so many times where I'm in a bad mood and I get on YouTube and I read my comments, and it just takes one negative comment to sometimes set me off. I'll even like go and type out like a paragraph sometimes in response to this comment, and then inevitably delete it because nothing good could come out of it. But on top of this, Lamar Jackson responded to the criticism he's getting for the quote unquote homophobic tweet, saying this is defamation of my character, because not once have I ever mentioned or disrespected anyone's sexuality, sexual orientation, gender, religion, or race. You are reaching. Bro, I can't really comment on this because I'd be very biased. I play a lot of Call of Duty, man, and the amount of times I've said SMD or literally eat is way too much for me to count. At least in my case, it's never coming out of a place where I am trying to target a group of people. It's like the equivalent of me telling someone to go themselves. I think it's all interchangeable. Could he have said something different? Yeah, obviously he could have, and maybe we should all try to get to a point where we don't literally say this, but to go out of your way to insinuate that Lamar Jackson really was so frustrated that he was targeting a group of people with this tweet, in my opinion, is a bit of a reach. But at the same time, I think it's not up to me to determine whether or not this is insulting. I think that community of people has to come out and say whether or not it's insulting. So if you happen to be part of the LGBTQ plus community, let me know in the comment section if what Lamar Jackson said offends you. Because at the end of the day, like, even when I'm not saying this to someone to insult them, I'll use interchangeably to say like you're doing nothing. For example, the Denver Broncos didn't do on offense, but at the end of the day, I don't think he should be getting the hate that he's getting. Should he possibly change his terminology whenever he's upset? Yeah, and I'm sure as a result of this he will. I don't think he should be canceled over this at all, but that's my take on the matter. I respect your opinion. If you have a different opinion than me, in the comment section down below. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.